HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambi. With Bambi, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambi's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambi.com. Type in Accelerate.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth with your host, Diane Helbig. Diane is a leading small business development and leadership coach, author, and speaker who is passionate about sharing valuable ideas, tips, and techniques with business professionals worldwide. Diane brings you the world's experts and gurus in all things business. Whether it's sales, structure, social media, planning, or plateauing, guests bring their expertise and energy to each episode. When growing your business is your focus, Accelerate Your Business Growth is the show to listen to. Got a topic or guest suggestion? Let Diane know. The goal is to make sure you have the information you need to move your business forward. Thanks for joining us. Settle in and enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's podcast is sponsored by Audible.com. Audible.com is a leading provider of spoken audio entertainment and information. Listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. Get a free book when you sign up for a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/businessgrowth. Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast continues to enjoy inclusion on lists of the best podcasts to listen to for business, sales, entrepreneurship, you name it, leadership. And it's really because of the guests who join me to share their expertise with all of you so that you can do better things in your business. Today is no exception. My guest today is Gresham Harkless Jr., otherwise known as Gresh. Gresh is the founder of cbnation.co and the founder and digital marketing specialist behind Blue 16 Media. Blue 16 Media is a digital marketing company providing digital marketing services to small to medium-sized businesses and organizations. Central to his marketing philosophy is that you are a media company. cbnation.co is a business-to-business brand focusing on increasing the business success rate by providing blog, podcast, and video content. Thanks so much for joining me today, Gresh.
Diane, thanks so much for having me on.
I am thrilled to have you on. Toward the end of the podcast, I'm going to ask you some questions about CB Nation and Blue 16 Media, but I am struck by this philosophy that you are a media company. And so I'm wondering if you can expand on that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that the great thing is that it kind of aligns with everything that I'm doing with Blue 16 Media and CB Nation, but kind of I guess the really big opportunity entrepreneurs and business owners kind of have in this day and age is that the good and bad is that we have so many kind of tools at our disposal. And that's ways that we can, talk about really anything, but from a business owner standpoint, you're trying to figure out how to get the name of your business or your organization out. So maybe you can get more donors if you're an organization, or you're trying to get more people to buy your products and services. So it's really taking this kind of mindset to developing your marketing strategy for your business, and also how to get your name out there for your business and kind of create that strategy around it. So that's where that You Are a Media Company kind of comes in, because we have so many tools at our disposal, and a lot of times they're very, very low cost, if not sometimes free. And it's all in how to create content so that you're really connecting with your target market. So like I have a whole entire like kind of step-by-step process, but really the thing that I usually try to say is kind of approach the business and approach your marketing strategy, approach the content that you're creating like your own kind of Washington Post. I'm in the Washington DC area, but you could be USA Today or ABC, whatever is kind of like your way that you like to take in content. If you understand like who you're trying to target, and you approach the marketing strategy and content that you're creating like that of a news organization, it'll provide you a really great opportunity to provide your target market with exactly what they're looking for.
I just love that. I think it is such a great way of looking at marketing that is understandable for any business owner, whether they have like previous marketing experience or marketing mindset or not, which I think most of them don't. And so marketing is something they struggle with, but to be able to look at it that way just is so clear.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, I think that a lot of times it's just work. I always say work backwards. So if you understand who your target market is, and usually if you've been in business for a certain period of time, even if you're just getting started, you probably have an idea of who you want to see come through the door over and over and over and over again. And if you have taken the time, or you can take the time to do like a quick questionnaire, like what types of things are they interested in? How can you position yourself to be that expert? And I think that's really like a great opportunity that a lot of people aren't really taking it as much advantage of.
And do you think that people don't realize how much they really know about things? Like I hear people say, oh, come on, everybody knows that. When the truth is, no, they don't. That they don't know as much as whoever this person is who decided to start a business around a particular subject.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's kind of like that imposter syndrome, where we we either think that we either downplay what we know, and I struggled a lot with this myself, so I definitely can speak to that, or you sometimes don't realize the amount of information you know, so you either think it's not of value, or you know more than sometimes you even give ourselves credit for. And I think that kind of has to do with that imposter syndrome. But I think that it goes so far to, even for me, like in my early days of business, I would basically just sit down with people and really thought they were pulling my leg when they say they didn't really know how to do that. Because a lot of times the things that we do best are sometimes gifts that we have, and we do them so naturally that we need other people to say, hey, you should maybe start a business, or that's really something I want you to create more content about. But a lot of times we don't give ourselves nearly enough credit for it.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. Okay, so if someone is thinking about creating a marketing strategy, are there steps that they should be going through? I mean, you mentioned before, start at the end, think about your audience and information that they want. Once someone knows that, like, are there steps, additional steps they should go through? Are there different avenues they should maybe think about sharing information that maybe are a little out of the norm?
Yeah, so I definitely think that there's, and I have like kind of like a 6-step process for exactly how you should do that. But kind of like, you just said, and, I touched on a little bit is that usually you really want to answer, I usually say about 3 questions. I call it like kind of like the pre-work you do before you even jump in. I think most of the times we jump into, platforms, which is, there's always a time and place for that, to experiment. But I think when you really want to think from a strategic standpoint, you want to, understand your target market. You want to paint a picture of exactly who you want to target. You want to know, their age, where they like to spend time, what time of day they want to eat lunch, just all of those things, and understand that that's gonna always be a continual kind of process, that market research, so to speak, where you're going to be learning more and more about your avatar, your target client or customer. But once you get clear on that, or have an idea of that, I should say, then I think you get crystal clear on your resources. And the reason that that's important, because a lot of times, depending on the amount of budget that you have, for your marketing, you might have, especially when you're starting, you might have more time than you have money to devote to your resources. So maybe you're going to do different things, but maybe that starts to adjust as you get more established in your business. You start to get more clients. You start to be exactly how you want your business to run, so to speak. And you start to shift exactly what actual steps you're taking. And then I think the last question before you probably jump right in is, you really want to know, and I often use the phrase secret sauce. You want to know that thing that makes you unique or makes your organization unique. And a lot of times that can start from why you started your business. I can't tell you enough how many entrepreneurs and business owners I talk to that say, they were frustrated with this, or, they didn't like that, or this didn't exist, so that's why they decided to just start their business. A lot of that is exactly what is that secret sauce of what makes you unique, what makes you tick. But also, if you're founding your organization, it also can help you figure out what makes your organization tick as well.
Oh boy, I so like that. It's funny you were talking about that, and I was thinking about an organization that I heard about that created, they had a baby and they couldn't get the baby to sleep, and so they created this product. And there's always a reason, right? I mean, if you're going to start a business, there's a reason. There's a dissatisfaction in the marketplace, or there's something that you have noticed that is a need that people have. And so really being able to hone into what is it about that and what is it about you that is valuable gives people that, as you call it, secret sauce, which is great, that differentiator.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk to me some about web design, because this is another place that I think a lot of new businesses and a lot of small business owners struggle with. What really are some best practices, especially because it changes all the time. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, even in going through those 6-step process, I have like a kind of an acronym. I call it recipe with 3 P's in the middle. But one of those, that second step is actually the crust, or I call it the crust of the foundation. And the reason I call it the crust is because it kind of brings everything together. So when you're thinking about your website, a lot of times it's what you're going to draw people back to. And granted, there's a lot of different opportunities out there. There's social media, there's, blogs, podcasts, so many different things that you can do. And a lot of times you can embed, you can build those into your actual website. But one of the reasons I say it's your crust, because it brings everything together, is because you really want to think about how you can draw people there. And it's one of those platforms that you own more than anything else. So when you are using social media and different platforms, a lot of times you don't control things like the organic reach. You don't control, how many people see your posts a lot of times without, doing advertising, of course. But your website you usually own. You can update it. You can, decide to move, pictures or images around. You can have your call to action higher, and you can usually do that either if you have the web skills or if you know a developer or designer to do it. But I really think having that understanding of exactly like what a website is and how it's not just something you put up there, which is one of the pitfalls I think a lot of people run into, is that they don't see it as a way for you to potentially get more opportunities for your business. It can actually be, like a living, breathing, non-sleeping employee that can advocate for your behalf. It's just all in how you leverage it and how you do it. And I think, having that strategic mindset helps you to kind of understand that, so you can start to, take those steps to create a website that is able to do that and accomplish that clearly. And I mean, there's a lot of different kind of things that you can do, from a website design standpoint. But I think just understanding that from a strategic standpoint, that my website is actually something that can advocate on my behalf when I'm sleeping, when I'm eating, when I'm, going to meetings, whereas this opportunity or this platform doesn't necessarily have to do that, is a big thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners miss out on.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's a great point. And I love that it's working for you when you're sleeping. It's that unpaid employee, really, who's getting information out there and doing all that. Would you recommend that people, like if they decide to do a podcast or a blog or video, that they host it all from their website, or should they start someplace else and then maybe they can migrate it over? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it definitely depends on different scenarios, going back to what your overall goal is. But one of the things that I think people miss out on is, more times than not, I believe that you should. Again, if you have a cooking site and then you decide that you want to do a sports podcast and it's something that's not in alignment, maybe you don't necessarily want to do that. But if it is in alignment, one of the great benefits of having content that's on your domain, and by domain, I mean like the www.whateveryourdomainis.com or .co or whatever that might be. One of the benefits is that you have constantly changing content that's on your website. So that's going to help you out from a search engine standpoint. So you're going to get more traffic and more people going to your domain. Your domain's going to look more credible, largely because you have that constantly changing content. So that whether that be a blog or a podcast, or even, if you host, for example, you host your videos on YouTube, but you embed them onto your website and people are playing them from your domain, that's going to help you out. So I think just from that standpoint, assuming everything is in alignment and it's hitting your goal, I think that that's kind of one of the things that a lot of people forget. Like when they do a podcast, it's great to use, a lot of these platforms out there. And a lot of times when you create a podcast, it will have the opportunity to host your podcast there. And, there's definitely a place for that. Going back to, understanding your resources. But I think when you kind of take a step back and want to try to have people go more to your website to get that free offer, or to maybe download your ebook, or to purchase your products and services, you want to start drawing people and getting more traffic and more credit on your actual domain. So that's why you want to, at the very least, embed, your videos, your audio, create your blog, directly on your domain, because again, it's one of those platforms that you own. And I even compare it to kind of like building a house. You want to build and put those bricks in place. And the more you create content, the more you have pages and posts, the more you start to build a bigger and bigger house that can benefit you down the line.
That's a great way of looking at it. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sponsor break, and then I have some more questions for you. Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast is happy to be sponsored by Audible.com. Audible.com is a leading provider of spoken digital audio entertainment and information. They have over 150,000 titles to choose from, and you can listen to them on any device, including whatever you're hearing us on right now. And if you sign up at our link, which is audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, you get one free audiobook and a 1-month trial of the service. Some examples of books you can listen to on audible.com are Two Brain Business 2.0 by Chris Cooper and Leading Loyalty by Lena Renee. So visit audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, explore the books that are of interest to you, and receive one free audiobook when you sign up for the trial. Today we're speaking with Gresham Harkless about developing a marketing strategy. So Gresh, you mentioned SEO a minute ago, and this is like the big mystery of any sort of digital marketing. So I'm curious, what mistake do most people make when they're working with SEO?
There's a ton of them that people make. If I could say maybe a few of the biggest ones is that not understanding that you having a website and you being online, you pretty much have already started with SEO. I say a lot of times it includes everything you do online. So as I spoke about a little bit earlier, that if you decide that you have your main business might be a cooking site or a cooking blog, or maybe you do like health consulting for people that are cooking different recipes, and you decide to do a sports blog and you try to kind of conflate both of those things and you try to have both of those go to the same domain, that can kind of negatively hurt you from a search engine standpoint, because all of a sudden your domain kind of has two different types of content coming to it and linking back to it. So I think that you want to be really, and it's not just, a lot of times people, tell their kids especially to say, be careful what you put online and be careful, what you post and things like that. You also have to do that from a business standpoint, because a lot of times you will confuse search engines because they're not sure exactly what is to follow when you go to that domain. So you want to be very kind of diligent and careful about what you're doing from a domain standpoint. And if you do want to, create that sports blog, then you want to put that on an entirely different site. And I think kind of along the lines of that is a lot of people will just get links and comment and post on places just because they hear something called backlinks, which are essentially links that are not on your domain going back to your site. So a lot of times they will just go to different sites like, Fiverr has places where you can purchase, 1,000 links for $5, not understanding that backlinks are not, they're not all equal. So when you have a link that goes from a different domain to your website and saying, hey, click on this and go to your website, a lot of times they have different ranks as well. So when you have low quality backlinks, it can actually hurt your domain more than anything else, because you have low quality links going back to your site. So for example, like a podcast site like yours, where you have so much renown and so much authority, not just from the words that you receive, but also just from a search engine standpoint, to have a link from your domain going to a person's site is really high quality. But if it's somebody that maybe is not as trustworthy, it's not going to be equivalent. So just understanding that all links are not equal. It's somebody that has potentially been in business and has a higher authority from a search engine standpoint, especially, provides really higher quality, links as well. And if I could, give you one more is understanding that a lot of people say, depending on what the name of their business is, when they search for their business, they can be found on search engines. That's another big thing, because a lot of times, unless you have a tremendous advertising and marketing budget, you may not have that brand awareness as much as you would for the service that somebody's providing. So what I mean by that is, for example, like we provide kind of like web design services. So you may not have necessarily heard about my business name, but you may have heard about web design services because you may have needed it for your business. Or again, if you're a chef, maybe you provide some type of culinary services. So people are actually searching for those keywords instead of searching exactly for your business name. So a lot of times from a business standpoint, unless you're like a Google or a really huge company, you want to show up for those services. So when you're starting to optimize your website and, getting into, figuring out, what goes on the back end of your website, like your title tag and your meta description, and doing that analysis, you want to think about it as far as somebody who doesn't know you. A lot of times business owners say I rank for my business name, and that's great. But 9 times out of 10, somebody who knows your business name probably already knows how to get in contact with you. Whereas you want to, again, create that visibility from your website standpoint. In order to do that, you want to optimize your site and everything you're doing for those products and services that you're providing.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. I think that is huge advice. Along the lines of digital, we have this whole social side of it, and so I think a lot of people misunderstand that side of it, but it's also like valuable for networking. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, like, in your experience, the role networking has played in your business.
Yes, it's been huge. I largely started my digital marketing business from a networking group where I got really serious about it. And kind of speaking, it's funny how everything comes full circle. What we spoke to in the beginning is when I started, I used to always work on like websites and always been kind of like a geek at heart. I never really saw value in what it is that I provided. And it wasn't until I started to network actually that I ran into people that needed the services that I provide. And otherwise I would have never known that it was of any value. So I learned a lot, and this was more face-to-face networking actually, that I learned a lot about networking, how important it is to provide value, how important it is to give, and not necessarily have a transactional approach to networking, but more relationship building. And a lot of times the phrase farming instead of hunting comes up. But it's like really learning to get to know somebody, learning to see how you could potentially help them, and do it from a genuine standpoint that allows you to have that opportunity for the business to grow. And I guess the quote is, if you help enough people get what they want, that helps you get what you want. It's not necessarily that you're always thinking from that perspective, but if you have that giving mentality and you understand that you want to try to help people be successful, a lot of times just energetically, it always comes back, at least in my opinion. So what I have started to do myself is I feel like I learned a tremendous amount from networking just from that standpoint. And I think that there's definitely an opportunity to do that digitally as well, where you have the opportunity, if you have a podcast, to interview like entrepreneurs and business owners and really get the opportunity to allow people to share their expertise, or you get to maybe feature them on a Facebook Live, or you get to go to like a Facebook group, and you really get to have those exact same principles where you are giving, you are providing value, you are connecting people with what they're looking for. And if you are kind of seen as that go-to expert or the person to call on, a lot of times it helps you to build your business and an organization and your overall expertise and your brand, your personal brand, a lot of times, because you are that person that can always be called on to provide some type of value. So I think it goes a long way. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it does take time to kind of build that. But I think that the respect that I have, for people that have been able to do that, and I'm always, working towards doing that, is that it isn't something that you can do with like kind of an easy button or is done overnight. Those relationships are built over time. And I think that that's one of the big things that a lot of people may not necessarily want to hear about networking, but I think it is all relationship centered, and you want to definitely make sure that you do that as much as possible.
I totally agree with you. Thank you so much for that. I completely agree. And it does take time, but that's it's relationships. They all take time, and the value is so incredibly great. Now, you have a podcast that I've had the honor of being on, where you ask guests what being a CEO means, and I am curious to know what it means to you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the honor was definitely all mine, Diane, to have you on the show, and it was a great episode, and I love, and I've been truly honored and blessed to have so many different types of quote unquote CEOs on the show. And really, when I wanted to start the show, I wanted to have everybody define it for themselves. That's usually the last question that I'll ask is like, what does being a CEO mean to you? And one of the reasons that I wanted to do that was because I felt like there wasn't a one size fit all definition. And I thought that it was a little bit more philosophical, maybe for lack of a better term, on what exactly it means to be a CEO. Because I always saw it as somebody being, forward thinking and having that strategic mindset towards their business, whether they're a solopreneur or whether they, had, 1,000 employees and a stock ticker price and a board to answer to. I felt like that strategic mindset was something that it didn't matter what size business or what industry business you were in. If you had that strategic mindset, you could definitely be a CEO. But I also thought that when you do have that, you start to really think beyond yourself. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a lot of employees to have that value that you're providing. Sometimes you're doing it with, potential strategic partners. Maybe you're doing it with contractors instead of employees, or maybe you are doing it with employees. So that's one of the big things that I wanted to try to, keep in mind as well. But probably the thing that I think probably pushed me more than anything else to want to kind of create the podcast was that I felt business as a whole was transforming. And in touching and looking at those different kind of foundational principles, it wasn't necessarily like you had to have, a certain amount of revenue, you had to have a certain amount of employees to be a CEO. It became a lot more of a moving target, I guess you can say, where if you had kind of like those foundational principles, you could, be a CEO. You could define exactly what you're looking for yourself. And I think that when you kind of looked at, a lot of those things and you had that kind of entrepreneurial, creative approach to business, whether you were creating your own business, creating your own podcast, whether you were working within an organization, I felt kind of like we all kind of had a lot of those foundational principles. And I think as the economy continues to change and it continues to go and have those ups and downs, I think those kind of CEO foundational principles are going to be necessary, not just for, the CEOs of big, huge Fortune 500 companies. It's going to be necessary for the solopreneurs, the people that have been in business for 10 years or 5 years, but then also the people that are maybe even working for organizations, because you're going to have those different kind of skills to be successful. So, with that being said, it's hard for me to say that there's like one specific thing that makes you a CEO. I think it's just having a lot of that mentality and that strategic focus and providing, a tremendous amount of value. And you can do that whether, you're working for an organization. You can do that if you are, a driver for Uber. You can do that if you have, your own podcast, or if you are the CEO of Google. No matter what it is, if you have those foundational principles, I think that truly can define you as a CEO.
That is really awesome. I agree with you. I think that's great. It's about mindset. Now, explain cbnation.co, if you would, please.
Yes, absolutely. So cbnation.co is basically kind of like a hub for all the content that we do for entrepreneurs and business owners. Going back to what I talked about the You Are a Media Company, it's all about figuring out like who who's the target market that you want to connect with, and providing value for them. So on the site, the goal is really two-part in that we really try to provide visibility for entrepreneurs and business owners to talk about their backgrounds, their stories, what it is that led them to get started with their business, and also hear about their products and services. But what we're also hoping is that every piece of content hits that part of the mission, or also provides a resource that helps business owners to be successful. So that might be local organizations that you may not know about. It might be overall programs that you're not aware of. It might be events that you're not aware of that are going on, or books that are launching or coming out. But we really hope to have different types of content that hits both of the one, if not both parts of the mission. And we do that from a blog standpoint. We do that from a podcast standpoint, and then also from video content as well. But just because people taking content in a lot of different ways within that community, we provide, different types of content that hits one of those parts of the mission, and really hopefully helps business owners and entrepreneurs to be even more successful.
That's terrific, and I know you are just doing a great job with it, partly because you enjoy it so much. It so resonates from you that you really are passionate about the subject, and you enjoy talking to the people you talk to and doing the work you're doing. So good for you.
Thank you.
Impressive. And would you please tell the listeners how they can learn more about that, learn more about Blue 16, the podcast, the videos, everything, please.
Yes, absolutely. So I pretty much have everything on my personal site. So you can type in GreshamHarkless.com, or it's a funky spelling progression. It's PROGRESHION.com. Both of them will take you to the same place. And when you go to that site, it'll have different links to each of the different projects, everything from the podcast to Blue 16 Media. But that's kind of like the hub for everything. But of course, directly, you can go to cbnation.co. That has links to everything as far as resources for business owners. And if we can ever help you out with any digital marketing, you can always go to blue16media.com as well.
Terrific. Thank you. And thanks for having this conversation with me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, Diane.
Yep, and I would like to thank the listeners. Hopefully you were paying attention. If not, listen to this one again, because there's a lot of really good content around this whole concept of marketing that I think will help all of us. And I'd like to thank our sponsor. To get a free trial of audible.com as well as a free audiobook, just go to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth to sign up. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh, man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Coming up on 5 Minute News, I'm Anthony Davis. You might think it's partisan because maybe it's critical of one side or the other, but it's not. It's just the truth. And I think that's also something that's kind of unusual for Americans listening to the radio or to podcasts, because the news landscape in the States has been so partisan for so many decades. So 5 Minute News is verified, truthful, independent, unbiased, and essential world news daily.